Om Shri Sai Ram, offering my most humble and prayerful salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan, Sri Satya Sai Baba. On this very auspicious occasion of Navratri, and we have just celebrated Dashehra, I offer my sincere best wishes to all the viewers around the world. May Bhagwan's blessings be on everyone. And it's a blessing that during this festivity, Bhagwan has given us enough to think about Him, to live in the glory and love of God. And in continuation, I'm very happy to bring you continue this series of His story through the eyes of His voice. So let us start this evening's offering with a prayer, and I request all of you to please join me in. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Om Shri Sai Ram. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to this episode of His Story Through the Eyes of His Voice. Tonight, I have a few brothers who have ventured into the field of education, and I thought it's befitting to talk about what we have learnt, what they have grasped through their life at the feet of the Master, and how they are able to live and implement in their present day. This magic of value education, this enigma around this word called values. And today we would jump into this and little bit explore this beautiful word called values education program. And for that, I have a wonderful set of brothers here who are going to join me tonight. And let me take this opportunity to welcome one by one. And let me start off with Brother Karthikeya. Sai Ram, Brother Karthikeya.
Sairam brother, my pranams at Swami's lotus feet. Sairam to everyone, loving Sairam to everyone. Very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation, brother.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Brother Karthikeya Naraparaju, as his full name. He is, let me give a little brief about you, Karthik, so that people know a little bit about you. Brother Karthik joined in our institutions in 2004, Prashantanilayam campus. He did his graduation in economics up to 2007. And as his journey would continue, he has, right now, he's an associate professor of economics at IIM Indore. So he's joining us from Indore today. So thank you, Brother Karthik, for finding time and joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me introduce now Brother G. Venkat Raman. Sai Ram, Brother Venkat.
Sairam to all of you. Thanks a lot, Brother Abhi, for this opportunity, providing us this platform to reach out to the Sai family.
Welcome, thank you. Brother Venkat is also an associate professor, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIM Indore. So they are both neighbors, colleagues, so together. And he started his journey in 1992, I believe, right? And
Yes.
1992, he started off from in campus in Prashantanilayam doing his BA, and then up to 1995, then he went on to do his PhD from Peking University, and right now he's at Indore, as a Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. So thank you, Brother Venkat. Welcome this evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I have Brother Surya Prakashpati,
Sairam, brothers. Sairam.
and I'm sure people who have watched the earlier episodes, they have already met Brother Surya online. But just a quick recap about Brother Surya. He is also an associate professor of human resource management from IIM Kozhikode, and he was a student from 98 to 2005, where from he did his UG, PG, and yeah, from MSc Chemistry. So, Brother Surya, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, brother. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Welcome. And last but certainly not least, I have Brother Chittaranjan, Sai Chittaranjan Kalubandi. Brother Chittaranjan is joining us from Bangalore, and he's an associate professor of strategy and entrepreneurship area, and he's in IIM Bangalore. Brother Sai has a wonderful journey with Bhagwan from the grade 1. So he started in 1998, right? In grade 1, and then 1993, sorry. And he went on to do his full schooling, then undergrad, then postgrad, then MPhil, before he stepped out to do his PhD and furthering his life's purpose. And right now he is an assistant professor, strategy at IIM Bangalore. Welcome, Sai.
Sairam, brother. Thank you.
So it's a pleasure to have you all very, very senior people, and it's such a joy to see you all here. And I'm eagerly looking forward to hearing from you all your journey with Bhagwan. So let us start a very common question I ask everybody. You know, your exposure and your journey in this life with Bhagwan. So why don't we start with Karthikeya? So we will start this journey with you, if you don't mind.
Sure,
Tell
brother.
us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you came to Bhagwan.
So, Sarah brother. So we, as a family, we were devotees even before I was born, and so I have had exposure to Swami Puttaparthi before I had joined the college. In fact, my mother also underwent a heart surgery at Puttaparthi. This was mid 1990s in the initial days after the super specialty hospital was opened. So as a kid, I visited Parthi, and back home, you used to participate in bhajans, etc. As kids. So I've had some prior exposure to Swami and Puttaparthi even before I had joined for the bachelor's program there.
So wonderful. So your exposure with Bhagwan has been through the whole, growing up period of your life.
Yes.
So what prompted you to join Parthi as a student?
But to be honest, I was not interested in going for engineering, and so I wanted to pursue civil services. So that was one aim that I was having, and I felt taking a social science discipline would help me. And I felt if I had to do anything other than engineering, then Puttaparthi is the place that I have to study. So, and my parents, my mother in particular, was also encouraging, and she kind of suggested that I should apply. And that was how I kind of applied for the bachelor's of economics program at Puttaparthi.
So your mom became the conduit for you to come.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Brother Venkat, I understand that you had no clue about Puttaparthi or Bhagwan or anybody before you landed there. So tell us your adventure. How did you think of coming here?
Yeah, that's right. One of our family friends, they were devotees. We called her Money Auntie. So it was she actually who said that it will be good if you try in this particular place. Very nice, etc. But she didn't say much about that place beyond that. So as I was about to complete my plus two, I just applied, and my aim of going to Puttaparthi was purely from an academic standpoint. I had to pursue. I had done my IA, so intermediate arts, and I wanted to do BA. And first time I see Swami, I hear his name, and I see Swami. So in the summer course, it was the first time I actually, uh, I'm a participant in 1992, summer showers, and that's when it started.
Just curious, how is your family background in terms of the spiritual discipline? Like, if some people have anyways growing up have some kind of a spiritual orientation, or a religious orientation, then acceptance is slightly different than if you don't have. What was your situation? How was your family?
Yeah, my family had a certain kind of orientation, pretty ritualistic, everyday prayers and all that. But with regard to Swami, we didn't have much of an exposure. Now, of course, my parents and my father is very keen and enthusiastic in participating in satsangs and singing bhajans and all that. But during that time, we had nothing of that sort. And as far as my decisions regarding you know, educational aspects are concerned, I had a complete free hand from my parents. So all the decisions that I had to take after my 10th class, they just supported whatever decision I took.
So
So there was no opposition whatsoever.
at least you had a very cooperative and supportive parents. So from
That's
that
right. That's
angle,
right. Yeah,
so
that's right.
it was an adventure for you to come to a place which is slightly more kind of
Yeah,
disciplined
yeah,
and organized in this manner, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
We'll dig into it further as we go forward to know
So,
how was your experience and challenges. But I believe
yeah,
similar was the case with brother Surya, if I'm not
Yes.
wrong. Surya,
Yes.
you
Yeah,
also
I think.
came there for studies, right?
Yes, yes, brother. I think I mentioned in the previous two episodes, my exposure to Bhagwan, in the first time I saw Swami was on a TV in the Satyasai Unity Cup, and
Cricket
I,
was.
yeah, cricket.
his at
That
his welcome
was
was cricket match. Hmm.
yes. So I remember in '96 after the World Cup, suddenly this entire fever of cricket was everywhere around, in all over the country and even the subcontinent. We were trying to watch every match wherever the Indian players, especially Sachin Tendulkar, he was shining in his top form during that time after '96. And so I remember he was captaining the India 11 versus the World 11
World
in a stadium called
Hillview Stadium.
Yes, and it was the Satyasai Unity Cup. And there, the first time I got a chance to have a glimpse of Swami. In the TV during that time, Doordarshan was the channel, and you just get a glimpse of Swami when the camera just focuses everywhere around. But then there was no real interest about this. Then I remember one of it was '97. My 10th standard was going on, and my parents were very concerned for my next education. Brother Venkat also has come from in a border state of Odisha, and he will realize the only good universities in Odisha are the Revensa and the BJP, and every parent will want that your plus two should be in Bhubaneswar. We were somewhere in the interior place in the Odisha, and my parents were over, competitive and over anxious about where is going to be my next education. So this neighbor just walks in like a dutam, Devadutam of Swami, and he tell, why don't you send your son to Prashanti Nilayam? My father said, yeah, why not? I know it's somewhere outside this, this Odisha. I'm sure the education will be even much better. And typically, we also have a impression the education in southern part of the country is much better. So there, the journey started, brother. My father wrote a letter. That time there was no internet, so you have to write a letter, get a prospectus. It's an orange color prospectus, and there you get to see Swami's photo there, and then it starts with the rules and regulations of the hostel and everything.
Surya, the way you talk
Yes,
about 1998 seems like an ancient time. Imagine
yes,
83 then. And I'm from a different era. That means.
yes. I can get that. Yes, yes. So
Okay,
yeah, so that is how, brother, my journey started. Then I wrote an
wonderful.
exam, got through the Swami's grace, and then yes, I landed in Prashanti Nilayam.
And here we have Sai Chittaranjan, whose family was already like soaked into the system. So, Sai, how was your journey, and why? How did you feel it?
So, my mother was blessed to serve as a professor at Nagpur campus, and my brother had already joined the primary school, and it was kind of a dream for me. That was at that point of time the best world I knew was spending time at Parthi, sitting for the darshan. I remember at the time, even before I learned how to write, I noticed that a lot of devotees would be giving letters to Swami. So I asked my mother if I can write a letter to Swami saying I want to join his school. And my mother took a paper and wrote "Dear Swami" and gave me. And I just uh, scribbled all sorts of things onto the paper. You can imagine what somebody who doesn't know how to write would really do on a piece of paper. And my mother neatly helped me to fold it. And Swami came for darshan, and he just passed me. In my innocence, I thought Swami did not notice me, and I screamed out Swami, and the volunteers tried to stop me, but then Swami turned and walked towards me, took the letter. I joined the primary school, uh, and since then it's been a wonderful journey with Swami.
How?
Like I
How?
just
Which
came
year
here.
was that, Sai? Which year was that?
So I joined in '93. So this would be sometime before that. This was somewhere maybe early '91, '92 sometime.
Imagine, I'm just imagining a kid screaming Swami and the Darshan line when everybody's pin drop silence.
But to me, Swami was always more like a parent. That was the kind of relationship I've had. So I always took a liberty with Swami. He's mine. I kind of own him, kind of. So
So was it any different? You know, what should I say? Being your mother, being a faculty, so there is always a pressure of discipline, and then you joining a school. Did you ever miss not studying outside?
I did. I did. About discipline, to be very frank, at least till my eighth class, ninth standard, I was not the most disciplined student. A lot of complaints would be there, and my mother would promptly tell Swami that these are the complaints about this fellow. Take care. And Swami would go and tell the teachers, take care of him. And so finally, after a point of time, the teachers told my mother that nobody was complaining to you. Swami is only going to come and tell us to take care of him. I did want to, at various different points of time, leave the place, but then Swami just never let me leave. He never permitted me to leave. And at any point of time, I thought that I could possibly look at an opportunity to leave. He worked up one of his beautiful dramas, and I just kept staying. 10th class, after 10th class, BCom honors, and then MBA, MPhil. He just never let me leave.
See the irony of life, eh? The more you want to leave him, he will make sure that you stay. And once you want to stay, then he'll say, now you're ready to go. That is the beauty of our Swami. So, brothers, let me open this session. I wanted to hear, so especially Venkat and Karthikeya, when you're joining Bhagwan, especially start off with Venkat. Venkat, when you come in with no expectations, you're looking at Parthi for the first time, and you come in to study, but then you realize you are made to go through a routine which is much more than academic. And I'm sure it must be a little difficult to digest initially because you have come to study, but here they're asked to get up in the morning and go through a proper schedule. In that, you only get a 2 hour slot to read. So, what was the initial impression about the hostel life?
Yeah. So my initial impressions about actually initially it was all good. Summer shower actually the kind of attention that students get there, that initiation gives you and makes you forget everything what's going to come in your life for the next 6 months. So you start on a high actually with summer showers. That's the impression that I got. And initially the teachers are also not very strict, very nice. I still remember the first day we reached Parthi hostel from Vrindavan campus after completing the samosas, and evening dinner is being served. And Shiv Shankar Sai sir, who recently retired, he was so youthful. I mistook him for a student actually. Excuse me, Sairam, can I have some salt? There is no salt here. And coolly and he doesn't say anything whatsoever. And he just goes inside the kitchen, happily gets the salt, and he gives it to me, and then that's it. So these experiences stay with you. And in fact, during our first year, there was no fan in Puttaparthi, in our dorms. And frankly speaking, look, that time we didn't even feel about the absence of a fan. How did we survive? We think about it today, but actually that time we hardly missed, the fan. Dormitory again. I stayed in my +2 in hostel. There were 5 people in one room. It was okay, but in my dormitory, there were at least in our hostel at least 8 to 10 people in one room. So I had a very good set of dormitory mates and all that from different backgrounds. And because Puttaparthi is a very multilingual place, language for me has never been an issue. So everything was fantastic. Very good food. We are going to hostel and coming, and yeah, after 6 7 months, things start hitting you. And because, as I said, frankly speaking, I went for my academics, and I had trouble because we had to sleep at 10:30 sharp. So how do you manage that time? How do you juggle this academics and basically the kind of orientation? As far as other aspects of discipline is concerned, frankly speaking, didn't have much of an issue. But yeah, I mean, I struggled to balance academics and the new environment, getting up in the morning.
Karthikeya, what about you? Even though you are from a background which was already welcoming with Bhagwan, but discipline is a different thing, at a hostel life. How was your impression about the hostel?
Right. So this was the first time actually I was staying outside my home. So I wouldn't say that I was homesick, but definitely I knew that the schedule is going to be quite structured, and they would expect a lot of discipline. So in fact, I one of our family friends back at Khammam was already studying. So I come from this town called Khammam in Telangana, and so through this brother Ranjit, who did MSc chemistry, I kind of got to know some sense of how the discipline is going to be there. So me and another friend of mine, we both joined in that year. So initially, I would say I was a bit intimidated as to whether I will be able to cope up and whether I will make friends. And there's also this fear that there will be seniors around. I've heard it's a campus which has starting from undergraduate to postgraduate. So that hesitation was there. But when I kind of joined, there were many systems at place which made me feel at ease. First, luckily I had like many others, like almost all of us, I had no problem in making friends quickly. So despite the fact that some of my batchmates were like Sai, were coming from the primary school, some of them were coming from the secondary school, so some of them knew each other already, but they were also welcoming to the newcomers like me who just joined in the undergraduate program. And then I particularly remember the nurturing that I got from my room leaders in the first year. So we had just joined, and a couple of brothers were room leaders. They were in third year. So there was this one instance where I had to go to the super specialty hospital for a health checkup, for my eye checkup. So the hostel dispensary said, "Listen, to something wrong with the eye. You should go and get more checkups done." So I was worried. So then Brother Shashikant was my room leader, and he took me along, and he said, "Don't worry, nothing will happen." And I was a bit worried. So will this mean I will be sent back home, etc.? But then he made me at ease. This was the first week of my stay at Parthi. So that's something that really kind of showed the kind of nurture that brothers put in, despite them being senior to you. They kind of make you feel at ease right from the beginning, and that's something that has stayed throughout my stay at Parthi.
In Parthi environment, Bhagwan has done this magic that many issues of the world don't even arise in this environment, like the issue of bullying, ragging. These words don't exist. And that is a very strange for many people to even consider, like, how. And here we have a reverse order of welcoming. But Sai, when you have gone through primary school, higher secondary, I think you have seen all the hostels of the institution, starting from primary to higher secondary to college to Vrindavan. So, what difference did you find in different stages of your hostel life?
So, as a primary school student, I think I spend most of my time just engaging in mischief. And when you, that was also the time that I was physically also a little far from Swami. But of course, he ensured that he continued to take care through his interactions with my mother. But then slowly, as I moved towards the higher secondary school, things started to kind of make sense. I actually started appreciating learning of Vedas, and, uh, and there was this beautiful transition. You know, Swami just initially made everybody chant the Vedas, and then they would translate the Vedas. So you know that you're not just doing rote learning, but you're trying to understand what you're learning. And then by the time you come to the Vrindavan campus, and I came to the India back to the Prashant Nilay campus, it was a very different phase where I was more focused on trying to get closer to Swami in one way. At the same time, I was also kind of hiding from Swami in my MBA days. But at the same time, I would put more effort into trying to understand what Swami was trying to say, what he was trying to mean, why we need to behave in a particular way. Uh, it was more of sense making as the time progressed. And this kind of helped me later when you rightly said that uh, many of the problems of the outside world we're not exposed to. And when I later moved outside, it kind of made me more open to accepting differences without really judging anybody by their differences.
See, I'm opening this floor. You can all, share your thoughts if you get. I'm just trying to ask you. Uh, in whole of this concept of education which Bhagwan created, every place has their own contribution. Like in our time, we used to say that, in education, the college has got hardly 25% of role to play. The major thing happens in hostel,
Yes.
and the equal happens in mandir. So mandir, hostel, and institution together creates this environment. So you maybe learn something in institution, but you practice in hostel, and you literally deliver. You get rewarded or punished, or you get your rewards output in mandir. So it's like a sequential triangle. So what is your thought on mandir, impression of mandir, and the impact of going to mandir? Venkat or Surya, please.
Yeah. So, Mandir is a very important place, brother. I mean, while I say it appears very cliched, it's very important place because Swami used to give darshan there. He used to every for a student's life in '98, every day at 3:45 or 2:45 rather, we will have to make lines in front of our hostel, and then there will be, of course, line leaders. I'm sure Chittaranjan was one of the line leaders during his time, and then batches of boys will walk, and we will walk barefoot. Most of us prefer to wear barefoot because in Mandir our slippers used to get exchanged. The point is, I've never walked barefoot in my life, and the first time I walked barefoot in the hot Rayalaseema sun, I realized what sadhana is. Later, a teacher told me later, this is sadhana, boy, don't complain. Then I just accepted it, just going along with the tide. And yes, so you walk to the mandir and there you sit for Swami. The point is, mandir is a great place for reflection before Bhagwan actually comes for darshan. Suddenly, this is where what spirituality is. Spirituality is the stillness. And the great masters always provide a calm ocean as a symbol of spirituality. What stillness is, what peace is, what calmness is. So when you are still, you will believe, brother, all the good things and bad things, they just everything just comes to your mind before you even realize, and you want to really suppress the bad and highlight the good. Then in all that confusion, what happens, you start talking with each other till the darshan music starts. Swami giving darshan is a wonderful moment, no doubt. But what happens during darshan is you really want to pine for Swami. And as my studentship, if I can use that word, increased in Swami's system, I started actually going, having darshan, trying to visualize Swami's darshan within me. But that is what even Bhagwan tells. After my darshan, remain silence. and try to absorb everything. But this came very late into my studentship, so if I can use that word again. But Mandir is a place where Swami teaches us what three things. He teaches us about what Indian culture is all about. He teaches us about what is the right conduct. He teaches us how to connect with the communities. Very simple. I still remember the Khanda Khandantara poem that Swami chants before his discourse. Although your entire being is on literally lights up, and even as I'm speaking right now, I can literally hear his sort of voice. I can recall his voice during that time in a booming cyclone hall. So, and then you realize what a great country you belong to. And it is not about this physics or chemistry or biology. You really are inspired to learn about the context you are taking the education in. The physics or chemistry or biology happens in India, and you really need to learn about the context, this country that you belong to. And yes, there are teachers and books and who are ready with all the information, authentic information. I remember Bhagwan during the end of my student days. He brought about even a course, postgraduate diploma in Indian culture and philosophy. We used to call it PGT CAP, and most of the boys want to take it because we really want to extend one more year with Swami. After I even remember talking out to my dad. I want to do a 1 year PGT cap more. After my father asked me, what the logical connection between chemistry and PGT cap? I had no answer. But then Bhagwan did that, and many boys used to do it. And then Bhagwan used to teach us the right, acharanam, that Swami says. And Mandir is a place where varieties of devotees are there. So there are some VIPs, people who are celebrities in their own right. And then there are people who are no celebrities, who have come to Swami for the first time. And then you suddenly see Swami talking to both of them almost equally. As if everybody is a child, or everybody is like he's a mother figure for all. So you realize what equality is, in Mandir. It is not about what Swami talks, but what he symbolizes, the equality, the embracement, the inclusivity that Bhagwan brings about. And finally, Mandir is a place where Swami teaches us, how to connect with the communities. So this is where the service projects actually come in. So Bhagwan says there must be a purpose in your life, and the purpose is, to find yourself. And the best way to find yourself is to serve me, and the best way to serve me is serve everybody around. So it is a huge philosophy. It took me some time before finding out, but these are the three things
Surya,
you get in
you're
Mandir.
giving us a really big, in-depth exposure to the
So
mandir and learning.
yes,
I'm
yes.
happy.
So
It shows your involvement and that passion towards it. Yes, Venkat, what do
Thank
you
you.
say?
yeah. So my memories of the mandir. I will be very very honest here. Uh, for me, those 3 years became a part of my muscle memory for those 3 years. Is something a certain sense of mechanical process that was happening in my life when I was. So I was neither very so like some of my friends, neither I was very enthusiastic nor I was very laid back as well. I used to follow the discipline of the institute, number one. But I would mention two three things from my side. All the 3 years when I was in Parthi, I used to always look forward to my birthday, where without any hassle I would be getting the first line, and Swami will come and bless, and he will give the vibhuti, and he'll throw the chocolates, and he will speak a line that itself is enough. So that is one. Second is it gave me time to study after the darshan, for 1.5, 2 hours, that time you used to get. And yeah, and I always like 5:30 to 6. The bhajan time actually was always very, very nice. And there were at certain times when you sit inside the bhajan hall, and 3 years out of those 3 years, I think maybe 10 to 12 times maximum. These 10 to 12 times were those when Swami is sitting in front of you, you are singing bhajans, and you know, absolutely with out of the blue, singing the bhajans, you start crying. So so that feeling, and those days when it used to happen, once you come out of the bhajan hall, you used to feel so light and used to feel so good. So that is another memory I have of that place. I mean, during those 3 years. And next is, I remember once, me and my batchmate Pranit Reddy and another two or three friends, we went to Mandir to to basically decorate for Christmas actually. So tomorrow morning is 25th December. The night before we go 10 o'clock until the next morning 4:30. We can already see that the sun is rising, and then just then we finish our decorations, and then we go back to the hostel, take bath, and come back again. But there was no dearth of energy. So those are some of the memories that I associate with Mandir.
Sweet.
So yeah, during Mandir time, the experience was unique. For instance, the whole process of waiting for Swami to come. So this slow excitement that builds in. So in our time, Swami used to come in the golf cart. So as soon as the golf cart used to come in terms of in the front of the PC Purachandra Auditorium, and then people used to say, okay, now the cart has come. Now it's going to happen. So and then people will assemble with folded hands. And now he has come out. So the entire process where you see some 20,000 people in the entire Kulat hall suddenly waiting and for someone who has just come. So I come from a devotee's family, but I've not had so many memories of darshan before joining Puttaparthi. So the initial memories of darshan that I have in Puttaparthi is this entire excitement of Swami coming there and having that exhilarating darshan that happens. And then afterwards, as Venkat was saying, I agree. I mean, sitting in that prayer hall, in Bhajan hall, for that half an hour, I mean, I don't think we can ask for anything else. We are praying to someone who we can see in human form, right? So what else do you need? And with complete sense of forgetting everything else, we just focus on being there. So I try to make the best use of that bhajan session. I try to make sure that I always sit inside the bhajan hall, because during our time, Swami used to mostly sit inside the bhajan hall in between 5 to 5:30. So that was one of the most great experiences. The other thing with Bhajan Hall is also, remember before Swami used to come, so there was some time we used to spend there, reading, and sometimes we used to have exams. So whenever we had a tough paper, and the next day we used to feel, well, will we be able to manage? Should we take books? But even when Swami was not there, we were waiting for Swami to come, and then we sit there. It's so peaceful that in the half an hour that you get, you kind of ace the entire material, and next day you are like doing the exam really well. So that the peace that the place brings in, it has multiplying effect, not just from the darshan perspective, but even just sitting there and doing your work is quite productive.
Excellent. Sai, you want to add something?
To me, Mandir was the kind of place where it all made sense. Why do you study hard? No, Swami would ask who's getting top marks, or Swami would ask who's excelling in some particular exam. So one chance to get closer to Swami. Why do you want to do well in sports? If you become a captain or if you win some medals, then possibly you get a chance to interact with Swami. Why do you want to behave good? Possibly you get another chance to interact with Swami. And Surya mentioned about walking in the hot sun with no slippers, right? As a line leader, I know that a lot of people would come to Mandir barefoot, including me, simply because it would take a few seconds to park your chappals and then come inside and mark your spot. Without chappals, you can just rush in. Now, that Mandir was a time when even your indiscipline goes kind of justified by Swami that at least my boys are crazy for me. So even as a line leader, being on the other side of trying to maintain discipline, we knew that there were kind of things that you just kind of turn your head the other way. The boys are rushing for Swami, so it's good. I mean, it's a good kind of madness, right? And then Swami comes and he interacts on all kinds of lessons. Either you're learning from Swami at that point of time, or the lesson is getting reinforced at that point of time. For example, we would hear stories about how Swami would cut his nails so that no devotee gets injured when they're taking Namaskar.
Yes.
I remember some of us would actually try to observe if Swami's nails were so closely cut. And it was true. We could actually see it. And then Swami also, being the all-mind person that he is, when you are trying to do that, he would also give a mischievous look like, it's true, right? That kind of reassurance. And also very small lessons, like for example, in my third standard, I was sitting for birthday blessings. At that time, we used to sit with a photograph and a marker pen for Swami to sign the photograph. And Swami had gone into the interview room and he had not yet signed the photographs. So, as a standard kid, what would you do? You get bored after a point of time. So I took the marker pen and I was drawing on my hands, right hand done, left hand done. I was searching for where else to draw. And that's when the interview room door opens. And Swami walks straight to me. Along with everybody else, I stand up holding the photograph in my hand. Swami just takes that photograph and the book holding it from my hand and gives it to the next boy and asks me, "Show me your hands." I show my hands and they're full of black ink with a marker pen. And Swami says, "See how dirty you've made your hands. Look at my hands, how clean they are." And Swami showed me his hands. And then Swami told, "Never write on your hands." Now just imagine, the Lord of the universe is teaching you these kind of very small lessons. I remember at another point of time I was sitting in the first row and you want to be brotherly with all the others around you, right? So if you're sitting in the first row, I would actually try to uh, hunch so that the others also can get a good view of Swami. Then Swami looks straight at me and says, "Back straight." Even these kind of lessons. And another time, Shivaratri, I remember the first time that this was in my 10th standard. And that was the first time that we were allowed to stay awake for the entire night. 8th standard, 9th standard, you're not allowed to stay awake for the entire night. And 10th standard, we are suddenly allowed to stay awake. And I stay awake, and we never expected Swami to come out for darshan. And I'm staying awake in the night, and suddenly Swami comes out for the darshan, and nobody is there in the third block. So I get a seat right opposite Swami's chair. I'm just a few feet away from Swami. Till that point of time, I'm very energetic, very awake, participating in all the energetic bhajans that groups like the Hyderabad Youth and the Delhi group are doing. You're staying awake literally to sing with them. And then Swami comes, Swami sits, and that is the time, unfortunately, I feel sleepy. And I feel sleepy. I start dozing. I'm sitting straight opposite to Swami. First line, just around 4 feet away from Swami. I start dozing. All the brothers around me are trying to wake me up. Swami is looking at you. Swami is looking at you. But after 3-4 minutes of a very hard battle, I just couldn't hold on, and I go flat. I'm literally putting my head on the floor and sleeping just in front of Swami, and nobody wakes me up. I don't know if Swami asked them not to wake me up. I finish my sleep, then I wake up, and Swami is still sitting there and is looking at me. More like a parent, like sleep is done, right? And then still Swami was there for some time, and then he goes back. And then these are the kind of times when you realize that, okay, why am I actually here? Yes, I'm here for studies. Yes, I'm here for all-round integrated personality development. But all of this, the reason or the base for all of this, the real purpose is to please Swami, somehow get closer to Swami. And Mandir was a place where it really made sense, whether Swami is actually talking to you or not.
Very nice, very nice. Thanks, Sai, to share those beautiful memories. Actually, you brought so many memories. It's just getting flooded now. But in education field, they always talk about preparing the child, especially in the early education. That's called early education, like 3 years to 5 years to 6, 7. That age, they prepare children. How do you prepare a child for learning? So learning milestones, one of that is very critical, is how do you make it receptive? And for that, people have been trying level best to find ways. And we were fortunate to, I was fortunate to be involved in that. And I realized, the silent sitting, what Bhagwan calls it as a Jyoti meditation, the meditation with flame, we started teaching them at the age of 2.5 to 3. And by the time they are 5 year old, they're already, I would say apt in that. They could sit in one place for at least 7 to 10 minutes. So you can imagine a 4 year old, 5 year old children sitting perfectly for 7 to 10 minutes. It may sound less, but I'll tell you for that age, it is an amazing feat. And now when I think about your mentioning the hostel like Mandir, he used to make us sit for hours together. So you can imagine how subtle training it is. You may fiddle around, you may go for water, but overall, we were used to sitting for hour, 2 hour easily at a stretch, and that builds it up on you. So if you look at it, the whole learning, as you are mentioning about the hostel, about Mandir, and Sai just mentioned a term called integrated personality. So today, as an educationist, when you look back, what, how do you look at all of this, and how do you give understanding to this whole thing? Like what you are doing today or what you're trying to do today, the seeds were sown somewhere, even without our knowledge. Any thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. So totally integrated personality. So when you are in Sri Satya Institute of Higher Learning, I mean, yeah, you come there to learn, to get a degree. But as you do this, there are so many other aspects to it. For example, the annual sports festival is there, where you know students. It's not a usual sports festival. I mean, the preparations, in a relative sense of the term, are as Olympian as it gets. I mean, it's pretty, gigantic effort, I would say. I mean, to please,
Oh yeah.
Swami, and the kind of creative juices that inspiration brings is amazing, to say the least. And so, in that sense, to please Swami, the whole system is geared. So each one is kind of, motivated to discover themselves actually. So how do I please? So therefore, you get to know what are your strengths. Someone is very good in singing, someone is very good in drama, someone is good in something else. And if you are not good in anything else, at least try to please Swami by being a good student and getting good grades. So that is one aspect. Second is, in the hostel, this whole concept of some boys in maintenance work, kind of doing seva. Some boys, preparing khichdi and doing other things for sick, students. Then, students working in the stores. Then students were, working in, offering their services in the dining hall. So that is something which is expected, and when so many around you are, you see people are doing things, you should be too thick-skinned not to do anything. I mean, so in that sense, you also feel that I also should contribute. So that, again, is another very interesting aspect. I remember in the institute during our days, students were encouraged to speak also in the foyer sessions. And many a times I myself use that opportunity to improve my public speaking skills, which has stand me in good stead. During our times, we had some outstanding. I always believed that in the whole world, I think Satyasai Institute of Higher Learning has a problem over capacity when it comes to eloquent speakers. I don't think any other system has so many speakers, who are absolutely mind-boggling in the way they deliver speeches in front of Bhagwan, in front of huge crowds. So that was something which was very inspirational. Another thing is also total integrated personality. Many people think that, people who are in Puttaparthi, our teachers and all, who have dedicated their lives to that place and to Swami, they tend to think that, they are spiritually oriented. But as I was sharing the other day, uh, what is absolutely mind-boggling is the kind of service orientation our teachers have. So it's not that they are spiritually very dedicated, they are spiritually very evolved, but under any circumstances, this did not preclude them from excelling in academics. They're absolutely brilliant teachers. Some of them actually were publishing without our knowledge during that time. Today we come to know, even today, many of our teachers there, are publishing in some of the top-notch journals. So spirituality and all that is never taken as a refuge not to do well academically. And this is something which is again a great lesson that we saw there. The teachers, for them, I think as if this is the impression I got, as if they're not excelling, for them excelling academically is also part of their spiritual endeavor there. That in the process of if we are here, then part of our spiritual evolution is also indispensably linked with how do we teach the best to our students. That also is part of our spirituality. So
Like
The
Bhagwan
marriage
was
of spiritual and secular is absolutely
amazing.
fantastic, actually.
Actually,
So,
Bhagwan is to
so yeah,
pun a word. Sorry to, but in just,
yeah, that's
Bhagwan
true.
is to
Yeah,
pun a word. He would say, if you don't get mark, it's okay, but don't get remarks.
yeah,
And then he would say, if you don't get marks, then you will get remarks. So hence you have to
yeah.
get marks. So it was like, so what you're
It's
saying, Venkat, you're telling, I'm just reminded of that sentence of Swami. If you don't get marks, it's okay, but don't get remarks. But if you
Yeah.
don't get marks, then you will get remarks. Hence, you must get marks. So it's like catch 22. If you don't know it,
Yeah,
it's right, Venkat?
there's so much of love and affection. The carrot and the stick which were dangled by teachers was an amazing mix. They used to balance this very well. So I'm sure many of the boys remember how sometimes when for Suprabhatam teachers will come and wake you up, and one fine day you feel that, oh, today I'm not well. Then one of our professors. Uh, I'm just a
Point to be
professor.
noted. When we feel
Yeah,
we are not well.
yeah, exactly. When we feel that we are not well, so basically, sir will come and wake up, and I remember, I will say, sir, we are having stomach ache or headache or something, and after half an hour, Suprabhatam is over, sir will come and he will give us homeopathy medicines. So, these are so heart touching, actually. You will feel ashamed to next day actually say that you are not feeling, or you fake that you're not well. um,
yes.
so all our teachers so much of love and affection. So that is so it inspires us to, once now that we have become teacher, it inspires us to you know act accordingly as an example and do the same with our students here. So I think in that way many of these things I think constitute a very very important part of our stay there and what we carry from there.
You are mentioning to me about other activities of your student life, and there's something, a very big word we call self reliance programs, and which play
Yes,
a huge role in all our development. And
right.
Bhagwan is to be very proud that my students, my children take care of themselves. They take care of everything in hostel and college. We don't have to depend on anybody for that matter. What is your experience? And quickly tell us which department were you involved with, and what was the learning from there?
Yeah, so I was involved in this 6 monthly, duty of offering and do my 2 cents for in 2 bits for the railway ticket booking. Used to collect money and fill up the application forms and take it to Lakshmi Narasimhan sir, who was our director that time, and he will sign it. And then we used to help the person from the institute, who used to come from the ad block, and he would basically be taking all these documents to the railway authorities, get us tickets, and sometimes some people will book initially, then they will say, no, no, I want to change the plan. So all those things were there. Apart from this, we did, I basically tried to involve myself in a very limited way whenever I could. I used to go to the dining hall. I used to like serving.
Serving work,
Not very
okay.
regular. Let me accept, not very regular. Some of my batchmates and seniors, in front of them, I did nothing. But I liked, that part of seva. In fact, just as I was talking about love and affection, I would like to recall, although not directly related to your question, but still, this is something which tells us about our teachers. Lakshmi Narasimhan sir was the director at that time, and one day, I took this whole bunch to his office, director's office, so that he can sign. And next day, I go to him. Lakshmi Narasimhan sir was one of the loveliest persons that one can come across. You can never imagine him being angry, but that day I had the good fortune of his anger being shown to me. I take it as a good fortune. Rarest of rare. So so I felt very startled actually how what happened. But next day, sir calls me, and director of an institute apologizing to a student, undergrad, second year, and his apology, he gives in gift a book which he autographed with love and blessings. Professor Lakshmi Narasimhan, that's what he wrote. And the book that he gave me was Autobiography of a Yogi. So absolutely fantastic memories.
So sweet, so sweet, so sweet. Yes, Karthik, Sai.
Yeah, no, sure. So I was in the hostel library department and also in the homebound department. So coincidentally, the same department that Venkat was part of, perhaps a decade earlier, I was part of that also. So we used to book library tickets. And in the hostel library department, we were basically maintaining the library and lending the books to students and making sure they're kept in good stead. We were also binding the books to kind of make sure they are long lasting. So if I look back some of these things, and this resonates with what Venkat has been saying as well, these activities indirectly teach you the importance of many values. So for instance, trusteeship is something, sense of ownership of the institute is something that you readily learn while you're engaged in these self-reliance activities. And if you're handling, like in homebound, people give you the money, you're responsible for that, you ensure the ticket is kind of booked and you give it back to them. So all this is kind of teaching you indirectly in a very nice way how to be responsible, how to be trustee.
Responsible.
Yeah. And yeah, I also kind of have had the good fortune of the munificence and kind of the generosity of professors, right? So in fact, even those who have not taught me, so all of you I'm sure know Professor Vishwanath Pandit is perhaps one of India's greatest macroeconomists. So he used to teach at the master's level, and I was only doing undergraduate. So at the end of the second year and start of my third year, I was planning to apply to Delhi School of Economics. So I just, in the corridor, I just mentioned to him, sir, I just want to have an appointment with you. I want to discuss how do I go about this. Then he quickly called to the office and sat me and kind of talked and discussed and said, well, you can prepare for the exam. But then I said, sir, I don't know what are the previous question papers. I have no idea. So it turns out that the Delhi School Library in Delhi has it and no one else has it apart from Delhi. So he arranged for that to be sent, xeroxed and kept in the department. He shared with me, and then I used to go and ask him for doubts, and then he used to very lovingly solve and explain what are the things. And after that, when I wrote the exam, when I was going to write the exam, he used to ask, do you have a place to stay in Delhi? How will you stay and write the entrance? And when the entrance was done, he was like, how did it go? Don't be disappointed if you don't get in. Right? A lot of people compete. And after that, I figured out by the time result came, and I actually cleared it. And when I went and told him, it appears that he already inquired with the department whether I had cleared. And this is a student he didn't. So he was like, oh, I already know that you cleared, congratulations, but don't go there. He said, don't. I said, sir, but this is what I've been writing for. So I said, no, I taught decades there. You basically not have the kind of attention that a student should get. And you would rather go to this place called Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research, where the 30 students, professors will have focused attention. So you better go here and you will excel. And that advice had put me in such a good stead. Like I'm extremely grateful for him for the kind of advice he gave me, because my contemporaries who some of them joined Delhi School, they kind of tell me if they had the kind of advice I had, they would have taken entirely much better route. And I should be thankful for every day, because the kind of advice and the kind of mentorship I got at IGIDR wouldn't have been possible, in a batch size of 5 times. And so he also kind of had a practical view. You won't be able to stay in a hostel in Delhi. The institute doesn't provide you, so you'll have a lot of problems in coordinating food and accommodation, academics. So you go here, there's a hostel here, and this is all about a student he has never taught, right? So imagine the kind of care that he puts in, and every one of them put in mentoring students.
So sweet.
And that's something that I'm eternally grateful for.
It's really very touching to hear that. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Just talking of question papers. Sorry, I mean, I'm just butting in here. I remember when I was in second year, I told my senior Aniket Khandelwal, who was third year BA, that I would like to go to JNU to do my MA in political science and international relations, because I was also someone who aspired to become a civil servant at that time. And it was Aniket who actually, told me that there is someone, our senior from Puttaparthi itself, called Mr. Dheeraj Mukhia, who is doing MA Sociology in JNU. Somehow I get his address. I write to Dheeraj Mukhia, whom I don't know, but today we are very, very close friends. very close friend. So Dheeraj actually sends question papers, from JNU for political science and international relations to Puttaparthi. This is one. Second is another thing. When I was applying in my third year for JNU, I remember my batchmate, Maheshwara Kulkarni, he said that you are applying for JNU, you want to go there, you should do something. I said what? Then he actually prevailed on me to take my application form to the mandir which is there in our mess, where Shirdi Baba and Swami's photos are there, and he said that I should show this application form to Shirdi Baba and Swami, and put it in their feet, take their blessings, and then send the application form, and then I should clear it. And that's so. So these are at undergrad level. These things are something which you don't see commonly, uh, where you celebrate others' success, or you work for others' success.
Yes.
You not only celebrate, but you work for him. That's true.
Yeah, work
That
for
is
it. More
very good.
importantly, work for it. Yeah, I mean, of course, celebration comes later, but you work for
Correct.
the success. Ensure that that someone
Yeah.
succeeds. So that is
That is unique.
very touching.
That is unique.
Yeah.
Sai,
Beautiful.
you wanted to say something?
Yeah. So you had mentioned about the silent sitting and how we're all trained for it. But then, as small kids, no amount of training can really ensure that you're going to sit silent for so long. Right? So it was very common that we would be sitting in mandir, and slowly the decibel levels will keep increasing. And then from the interview room, suddenly you see that Swami's hair or Swami himself is visible through that
Halo.
window.
The halo
Swami
of
is
his
looking,
hair.
yeah. And then the message goes, Swami is looking, and then shh, and everybody goes silent. No, and so then you realize that okay, stay silent. Swami is still watching, right? And even when I remember in my first year MBA, sports meet because of Swami's health, the time allotted to every item was cut, and we practiced a lot. We were in the gymnastics group, and we practiced a lot. And suddenly they cut the time. And then I remember that nobody really protested among the students that why are you removing my item? Everybody was just focused that the item should be good and someone should like it. Nobody was really concerned that am I performing? And being among the students, the 3-4 of the group who had been in gymnastics group for quite some time, I did feel a little bad, that we are all not getting chance to perform in front of someone. There were some students, I remember some of the brothers, they had practiced for about 7-8 months along with us, and in the new format, they were just holding the mats on the final day. That is their only role. You really feel sad for them. And then in that particular year, every campus was getting a time to show Swami their practice session. And that day was the Anantapur campus practice session. And it's a known rule that with me how it is, right? So nobody is allowed to be in the hostel. Everybody is in the mandir. And since our gymnastics group had an entire restructuring of the format, we were in the basketball court, fully outside, all visibility, hidden, and working out our structure. Swami comes to the ground. Swami is going through everything. We are really, so that when Swami turns, Swami will not see us. We are hiding and then watching Swami. And then the entire program gets over, and then Swami asks, any boys program is there? Nobody from the school is there because everybody is in the mandir. Nobody from the Prashant Nilayam campus is there, all are in mandir. Nobody from the Vrindavan campus is there, they are in mandir. Our group is the only one which is there. The message comes, immediately we grab whatever we can and we rush, set up the equipment in front of Swami. And we did from the basic warm-ups. Everybody gets a chance. And the final part was where we were supposed to jump over the hostel van. Now, since we were not prepared to perform, we didn't have the hostel van. So Bala brother called for the vice chancellor's car, which was also used by Swami before that. Right? This is a red Maruti ST. It was
Yeah,
also used by Swami
Red
before.
Maruti, huh?
Red
Red
estate,
Maruti,
yeah.
yes.
And it's parked in between, and 4 of us are going to jump. The first person easily clears, the second person easily clears. Now, for the performance, I had removed my specs. And we knew that I had mentally calculated the distance. But on that day, for some reason, I take off from the trampoline, and in the air, I look down and I notice that it is actually pushed a little further behind. And I realized suddenly in the air that I won't crash on Swami's car. And I just put my hands and finish the handspring and then land. And it's as if, Swami, and it was the last item in the entire group. Everybody did whatever they could, right? From simply jumping on the trampoline and landing on the other side. Everything is done. And I do this, and then Swami says, okay, let's. And we all come close. Swami blesses everybody, touches. We take Path Namaskar, and then Swami leaves. And that time it really strikes me that I could have actually crashed on Swami's car. And then once the entire euphoria slowly reduces, we sit down and take stock, and we realize that people who are signed on to the group simply to help us, even they had done the warm-ups, exercises in front of Swami. There was nobody who had a chance to complain that we couldn't perform in front of Swami. We didn't ask for it, but Swami gave it. We were ready not to do it. But Swami still gave us that particular opportunity. And when Venkat and Karthikeya mentioned about the care that professors showed, I think it's something even I still try to inspire myself when I'm teaching in my current role. That I need to know all of my students who are sitting in the class. If I cannot relate to them, then what am I doing even on standing on the other side of the class? Right? So there is a conscious effort to try to still talk to them as if it's a kind of a personalized class. It's not yet possible for me, but I'm moving towards it. I'm trying at least to go towards it. Uh, and the self-reliance department, of course, I was in the maintenance department in the high school. And by the time you come to Brindavan campus, you really need to work hard because you need good marks to get selected into the audiovisual department or the maintenance department. Because these departments get a better chance to interact with Swami. You sacrifice your holidays, but you just want it because you can stay closer to Swami. So you study hard just to get into these departments. And I did skip them. I was in the multimedia department and then later on as a line leader. And the line leaders department, the Prasadam distribution department is more like an ad hoc department. There are 3 or 4 boys who are in charge, but you know that when the time comes to distribute Prasadam in front of Swami, you will actually have more volunteers than you require. Everybody will jump on
That's
the
true.
opportunity. So you have no worries in your mind. The only concern that you have is who takes that last bowl. Because more often than not, Swami would ask, has everybody got it? So the person who is carrying the last bowl in front of Swami could actually turn around and ask, okay, did everybody get it? Did everybody get it? And then you turn back and report to Swami, everybody's got Prasad. That is your only concern.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It is such a nice to hear you. You all are bringing so many memories of times of student life. That everything which Bhagwan has put in place there is such a learning experience, and you can see that people must be wondering about so many departments that you're mentioning. Audiovisual department and line leader, and so it sounds like how many departments are there? Some people may think. Honestly speaking, it is like the whole life has been divided into different work, and each work is a department. So
Yeah,
that's
there was
how life goes.
Sikh food department as well. Sikh food
Yes, there was
department.
a
Rangarajan sir used
and
to, head that particular department. I remember. And once in a while, I
and
also got benefited from that. That khichdi and all that.
the food was
So
so good.
explain.
People were
So
looking
now you have to
forward.
explain that. You have to explain that to the audience. Like, what do you mean by a Sikh food department?
Yeah, Sikh food department means so those they were at any time certain students not feeling well, they won't be able to partake the usual mess food. So for them, some special food was prepared in a different place. And few students that time actually Rangarajan sir was the one who was from faculty side leading. So each department was led by one faculty. So maintenance during that time was led by Pallav sir. Stores was led by Sainath sir, uh, and this Sikh food department was led by
So there was a
Rangarajan sir.
there was a sick room also in the hostel where all the boys who are not feeling well would be placed there, and for them, what you are mentioning, a special food was made. And usually,
Yeah.
trust me, Venkat, I don't know why you like that food. It used to be so bland, man. But
I
in
so
our
yeah.
time, we had a brother who was very good cook. So when he would not
Okay.
like the main food, what has been cooked, he would take the sick food and then go inside the kitchen and then tweak it up.
Yeah.
and it would look so delicious. So there are so many good memories of that.
Actually,
Let
brother,
Yes, sure, 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 Surya.
Swami succeeded where many Indian parents have failed. I always, point this because most of us boys, we do not know how to cook. We don't wash our clothes. We don't pick up our plates. It's a very normal thing. But suddenly you enter the Satyasai hostel, for higher secondary school or senior students, and you have to do everything. Of course, the clothes part, fortunately, Dhobi was there. But as a room leader, I remember in Vrindavan, Gopi sir said, tomorrow your room's, chance to come and roll the rotis, chapatis in the morning. Come after Supratam, I want you there, and we need to, sort of roll so many chapatis because the breakfast bell goes at 7 a.m. And then I had to lead the entire boys. Typically, boys have a habit after Supratam, they want to go back to, hostel or the ground and, go for a jog. But then I have to lead everybody else to the, kitchen, and we have to start rolling chapati, and we can see varieties of shapes coming out. And then Gopi sir also supervising sometimes. It was not a very pleasant sight at all. But the point is, we learned all that. By the time I remember, we crossed over, our 3 years in Vrindavan. We know more thing about cooking than simply cooking noodles. Now we can roll a chapati. We can definitely sort of get some vegetables, and we can all make, desi version of tacos. We're very happy about that, and we can have a nice food. Yes, brother.
Nice. Now the hostel is like enhanced. They have technologically equipped instruments,
Yes.
so you don't have to worry. People can cook faster. It was a very, I would say, ancient at our time. Everything was done by
Yes.
hand. Let me pause you all and ask you a different question. Uh, I'm curious to hear from you your idea of God per se. Even if you were from a spiritual background, from a devotee's family, there comes a time in life when, like Sai was mentioning, an age comes when you start questioning, uh, why am I doing it and what am I supposed to do. Similarly, you get a time when you want your definition of God. You want your own, reference to God, not based on your parents, based on the environment. As Surya would say, God on the wall. Before he came to Swami, he was on the wall, like a picture. But
Yes.
when does he suddenly become your God? And then the definition, the explanation about God is yours. So I would like to have a quick idea from all of you, your journey of God and what is God for you. So let's start with Surya. Quick.
Yeah, so brother, I think I have mentioned, but I will again repeat this. God for me, was a picture on the wall till I have come to Bhagwan. Then I remember again writing two types of letters in my during my school days. One letter for my to my parents, assuring them everything is all right, honky dory. The other set of letters to Swami. There I will write everything I cannot write to my parents. So my bad habits, my struggles, my attractions, my rejections, my unhappiness, my worries, literally, and Bhagwan used to take all those letters and read it. God is somebody to whom you can unburden everything. You do not need to wear the crown of success or the pain of failure in front of Swami. Not that he doesn't know, he knows everything. But it's a very different satisfaction he provides you when you can completely unburden yourself to him, and you are not going to be, backstabbed by the usage of this information. You reveal any of those things elsewhere, you will be taken for a right. But to God, who is literally your own, you just feel that, to him you can tell anything in the world. That's a very different type of, happiness, satisfaction, closeness, proximity. You can use whatever word, but that word is insufficient to label how close you feel when you can reveal everything literally naked in front of somebody, and you are not going to be judged. He just accepts you as you are. He just, pats your hand or pats your head, and sometimes I have got a squeeze on my cheeks, and you know that he is taken care of. So this is something what God for me is. Somebody to whom you can unburden anything. And that thing I actually
Was this
continued to be.
was this concept with you? Oh, your light is. Can you hear?
Yeah,
Can
my
you still
power
talk?
just, yeah,
No
there's
problem.
rains actually.
Okay, no problem. As long as we can hear you is fine. So, uh, Surya, just a quick one for you. Did you have this feeling before coming to Parthi, or has it been evolved over the period of time?
This feeling was never before Parthi. This began in Parthi and it has stayed with me over time. It still
Excellent.
is, even after
Okay.
the Divya Sanitya Bhagwan, it still has remained with me. Something, a few moments of a day where I can speak anything to Swami that I want. And I know that I am convinced he listens to me.
Excellent. Karthikeya.
Right. So before I joined Puttaparthi, I joined the Institute of Puttaparthi. While growing up, the notion of God invariably, I mean, it's not a conscious thing that was thrust upon us, but somewhere we get this notion that God is to be feared. Like if you do something wrong, there could be this sense of retribution. Not exact words, but in the essence was like God is something to be feared, and you have to be you know careful about doing something wrong.
God
So,
is a
but when
watchman.
yeah, for sure, but also a watchman who should be feared, right?
Feared.
So he's of course watching you, but someone who can also kind of retribute and give back, so that kind of a fear. Well, as kids, perhaps that's natural, but when I joined Puttaparthi, uh, slowly this fear goes away, right? That's what at least I noticed, and you kind of develop love for Swami and love for God, and slowly that role of God has changed from that to someone to be feared to someone who's like a parent, like a parent will nurture you, a parent will tell you what is good or not. If you don't do it, of course the parent is not going to be happy, but that doesn't mean parent is angry at you or he'll get back at you. And so that role of God has changed. And when I think of God, I think he's a conscience keeper. For me, that is God. So if you're true to your conscience, and that is what God wants from you, because He has kind of given you that sense of what is correct and what is wrong. It's all about being true to your conscience, and for me, that is where it comes.
Uh,
Yes, Sai.
to me, the relationship kind of progressed over a period of time. My mother always reinforced in me that Swami is your parent, your Swami's child. In fact, at one point of time, my mother would, in fact, tell every small difficulty and happiness to Swami physically. She was fortunate that way. And at one point of time, Swami actually told her when she made a request that every time you're asking something either for your mother or for your son, and the freedom that she had, she also would look at Swami as her mother. She said, Swami, you're the one who's giving these troubles, you only have to take them away. And that kind of an approach. So even when I was small and through my primary school days, to me, Swami was a parent, a very loving parent, a very indulgent parent. I remember before I joined the primary school, I should always notice the primary school children holding trays with chocolates for Swami on the birthday. And it was there in me that I should do the same. Swami is my mother. If I have a birthday, if I want to celebrate it, it should be with Swami. I asked my mother, and somehow she arranged it. And on my birthday, I'm sitting in the first line holding a tray of chocolates. Swami comes, and in typical Swami style, he picks up the chocolates and throws them for the devotees. After he does it two, three times, suddenly it strikes me. And I tell Swami, Swami, these chocolates are for you. I tell him, Swami, these chocolates are for you. Swami says, then Swami looks at me and he tells me, these chocolates are for you. You're the small kid. Then he asks me to show my pockets. And I stand up and I'm still holding the tray and I just turn around, physically to show where my pant pocket is. And he picks up a big fistful of chocolates, puts in one pant pocket. I show him the other pant pocket. He fills that. I show him my shirt pocket. He fills that. So he says, eat these chocolates. These are for you. It's your birthday. So that was the kind of a relationship it started off with. A very loving parent, a very indulgent parent. I could tell him anything and get away with it. And I had any difficulty, he would always respond. And then over a period of time, it progressed to Swami being not only a parent but also a friend. I could tell Swami even some more troublesome thoughts that I had. I get into mischief, I can tell Swami that I'm getting into mischief. And it moves from necessarily having a physical conversation with Swami to even being able to talk to himself in his omnipresent form. And he starts reflecting that in the mandir. So you know that at any point of time, he's also your partner in crime for getting into mischief. You're trying to study, you're finding something hard to digest, and you just casually tell Swami, I'm finding problem with this particular concept, and then somebody just turns off one of your friend and he explains the concept to you. And then he also gives this kind of inputs as to how you need to uh, behave with God when you're talking to God. He tells you that don't always ask, be grateful to God, thank Him. And then slowly over a period of time, I actually started, more of my prayers became more of a thank you note to Swami rather than give me this, give me that. I really don't know what I deserve. I'm just getting what I'm getting because of Swami's grace. So over a period of time, it all moves and it becomes more of a thank you note to Swami. And even and after Swami left his motor coil, it's been difficult in initial times. But after that, I've come to realize that he's always there with me. I just need to reach out to him from myself at any point of time. Be it I watch a good movie, I like the movie, I tell him, it's a nice movie. I have some good food. I can easily share it with him. That kind of a, he's not very different from me is my feeling. That kind of a comfort level. And therefore, I always look at God as the perfect me. Maybe at this point of time, he's still always with me. But to me, God is a perfect me. Share all the problems that I have, all the imperfections, and then that's God. That's what it is to me.
It's a very, very beautiful and a powerful statement. God is perfect me. Good, something to think about.
Yeah,
Venkat,
yeah,
what do you
yeah,
think?
yeah. So, yeah, so before going to Perthi, my family background was such that very religious. Even today, they are very religious. My parents are ritualistic as well. They never forced, on us a certain kind of ritualism associated with religion, but they did enough to inculcate in us a certain sense of what is God. And to my limited understanding, till I went to Puttaparthi, God is someone whom you pray and He is granter of boons. That's a very basic idea of God. I mean, in a nutshell. So then you go to Puttaparthi, and then you see, this God in action. If you ask me, are you convinced that Swami is God in action? Um, and when do you actually can claim that one is convinced? I would not get into that. And because for me, God, this whole question that is Swami God is itself irrelevant, and I'll tell you why it is irrelevant. So when I went to Puttaparthi, and one of the most you were asking earlier about Mandir. One of the most fascinating things about Mandir for me is, as someone who was also a student of philosophy, my courses were political science, economics, philosophy. I always loved philosophy, and you know for someone who has never been exposed to Vedas and all that, the way Swami used to give these discourses, and some of the discourses, and please pardon me, everyone. You might even object to me saying that why I'm saying some of the discourses, but I would still say some of the discourses of Swami were so brilliant. I mean, even the deepest of philosophy taught in simplest of language to someone who is an undergrad. And one of the things which he always used to say that, you know, you keep on praying and God will keep on giving you till the day you realize that, all that you have been asking for only gives you temporary pleasure. So therefore, I'll keep on giving till you ask for something which gives you permanent pleasure. So my idea. So then, suddenly you think that, oh, my idea was that God is someone who grants boons, but this is a different aspect of this whole story. So that is how it got. But even then, after 3 years, I go out and still I think that, you more temples you go, uh, perhaps more are the chances of you cracking civils. Of course, your own hard work is also there. So then I will go to China for 7 years, and then you go to a place where you hardly come across the bell ringing or so. So you go. I won't say So this is tells you how your ecosystem has a certain kind of impact on you. For 7 years, you come once in a year to India, you go to temple, but largely that was a different thing altogether. Keeping in touch with God, in an alien environment. So I remember one of the times when one of our friends from SR Steel, I used to work there. They were coming during Ganesh Chaturthi, and I asked them, "Why don't you get Lord Ganesha?" And they got Lord Ganesha, and we celebrated in Beijing in my home with the Indian community there. And some of our friends from Maharashtra got so excited that they sung. So after a week, the Chinese policeman, local guy, comes and knocks at the door. What was happening in your place the other day? I go to the police station and then I tell him what was happening in my place. But now when I come back, now today, after having seen all this, where am I today? So if only a few days back someone asked me about, oh, are you from Puttaparthi? Is Swami God? The same question. So today my understanding of God is, who is a God? A God is someone who can actually inspire fundamental transformation in people's lives. In the case of, in maybe you, so for me, you are also God, any one of us he present here a God, if you have been able to fundamentally transform life of even a single person for better. But in the case of Swami, he has been able to fundamentally transform people's lives for better in millions and trillions. More importantly, for those people who have never ever gone to Puttaparthi, never ever seen his physical form, just by merely participating in satsangs, part of Bal Vikas, suddenly they have turned a new, they're turned a new leaf in their book. I mean, in their life. And suddenly someone from a drunkard, decides that from tomorrow onwards I'm not going to touch wine. I mean, I think that is God. For me, that is God, who is able to inspire a fundamental transformation in you to live life with a better purpose, who gives purpose to your life.
Venkat, you have brought it very beautifully. One facet of avatar, and as Bhagwan says, in Kali Yuga, I can't kill evil because it is in one place. So I have to only use a tool of transformation, and you have also experienced it from that angle. Now, ultimately, all of this, whether we call it a value education program or we call it a facet of avatar, all that leads in us getting transformed to a character, which is heading, like Bhagwan says, end of education is character. So we're talking about, that ultimately the transformation is to what end? What is he transforming us into? What is the education meant for? The ultimate a personality development to what do we call integrated personality? So ultimately all of these questions come to a one concluding facet, which we call as a broadly character. In education line, that becomes our kind of an output which we are looking forward to, if I may put it like that. And all of you are like in the process of that. You're helping other children to find their characters or to blossom their characters in whichever way you want to put it. Now, if I have to ask you to look back to your life and pull out certain facets of character which your teachers, your environment, your colleagues, and overall Bhagwan himself has depicted. Just give me one or two or maximum three major attributes which you can define as character.
Character
So,
is,
yeah, okay, go
yeah,
on.
Karthik. Yeah.
Go, Karthik.
So
Yeah.
character, yeah. So
Oh, sorry.
character is humility. I gave example of Lakshmi Narasimhan sir. No matter what is your position, you feel that you are wrong, then you should not feel, anything below your self-respect to apologize to someone. If you feel so, I don't even today feel that Professor Lakshmi Narasimha is wrong in what he did. He had every right to do. Whatever he did, he must be having lots of legitimate reasons to do it. So anyway, the point is that that is one. It needs character. Second is character is also about uh, you know taking others along with you. So it's about progress, and as Swami also used to say, life is a journey from I to we. So that is again a character. And third is character is about discipline. Many times we feel that, so for example, when I was in JNU, going from Puttaparthi to JNU, it was like going to South Pole from North Pole, two different worlds. But despite being a polar opposite, the kind of lessons that JNU taught is absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, it is a revelation. I'm sure no other place on this earth would have taught those kind of things. In terms of having a broader outlook, having a humanitarian outlook, uh, but at the same time, you know, we all need to never forget where are we coming from, what is our responsibility to ourselves, to our parents, to our society. And many times, different people have different magnitudes of affordability, if I can say so. If you're coming from a very humble background, I mean, you can't afford to fool around the place with the happy assumption that if I fail in UPSC or don't succeed in life, then my parents, my father is always there. So in that sense, it's about responsibility, it's about sacrifice, it's about certain sense of self restraint, it is discipline, for a larger cause. And at every stage of our life, there is always this kind of a necessity whereby one has, no matter how much you want, yeah, I want an iPhone, I want an iPad, I want this, I want a Lamborghini and all. But the point is, at every stage of life, we need to exercise a certain self restraint. That time I had to exercise self restraint as a student, because I know that if I bungle it up there, then I won't be able to succeed in life. If I bungle, I will fail in my responsibility towards my parents. Today, if I feel like I want to do whatever I want with my money, then I fail in my responsibility towards my family, towards my elder parents, towards my children, in terms of giving them the best education. So it's all about self-restraint. So for me, character are these three things. It's about humility, it's about discipline, and it's about
Inclusiveness. Fair enough.
So
I
yeah,
think
uh,
you were
so
saying something. Yeah.
yeah, so I think character is realizing that innate humanness in all of us, and one characteristic that as humans we tend to have as unique is a sense of compassion and responsibility towards the fellow being, right? Not just humans, any fellow being in that sense. And if you look at the way things are organized in Puttaparthi also, this sense of responsibility towards the other is there inherent throughout. So the kind of team building activities that we do, starting from the festivals, you have all sorts of teamwork being fostered. So the motto also is like each lives for the other and everyone lives for the one, right? So that is that sense of responsibility, the sense of compassion that I think the place leaves you with when you kind of study there. And this is also coupled with the other things of sense of humility and gratitude, and the sense of humility comes through the dignity of labor that we kind of experience. So the self-reliance activities are nothing but showing us that every work is important, every work is having that pride of a place. So there's no hierarchy in terms of dignity of labor, and that brings out humility. So when we see some of the, not just in our self-reliance activities, but when we go to mandir, people who do seva dal, they also are coming from all sorts of life. They also are, some of them are extremely successful in their professional lives, some of them perhaps are from humble backgrounds, but when they wear that badge, they're all equal, and that's how they behave. And you can see them when you're sitting in the mandir, you're not just watching Swami, you're not just watching the other dignitaries out there, but you also see the seva dal, how they conduct themselves, forgetting about their sense of ego or whatever. So that brings out this character of, or characteristic of humility, right? So that, I think, and sense of gratitude for what you have. I think for me these three things are what constitute character: compassion, humility, and gratitude.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Okay, Surya.
yeah, brother. So, with your permission, I was just listening to Karthikeya, and this from the Sevadul thing. I'm reminded of an incident, 2004, when I was just an MSc student, and suddenly there was this tsunami that gripped the Indian Ocean region, and especially the Madras, sorry, the Tamil Nadu province of India, and a place called Nagipatnam was sort of the ground zero. I remember 10,000 people had died. When I say 10,000 people had died, it is a very understatement. Maybe 10,000. The better word is 10,000 people were buried alive. In the amount of sand that was thrown open by the ocean. So, some of this Tamil Nadu Seva organizations people definitely rose to action, and then after that they came to Swami for their final thing for the pranams. And I remember sitting there in Kulwant Hall, and I noticed one of my Brindavan ex classmates sitting also there. I was amazed. We are all very happy. A few of us who have got from Vrindavan, we have come to Prashanti Nilayam for our PG, and suddenly we see our ex-classmate sitting there. We're all very happy. We are waiting for all this to get over. Then we'll go and meet him because we want to really listen what happened. This person said after darshan and everything got over, he said it was so difficult. They had to dig out bodies from sort of mountains of sand inside. The bodies were bloated and rotting, and all this they did, this person had done all that by his hand. Even touching a fresh dead body, if I can use this oxymoron, fresh dead body is so repelling. Sometimes you really have to overcome yourself for doing that. This person has done that. He had dug out as many bodies as possible along with other volunteers in a Satyasai Seva organizations, and did whatever needs to be done. Then he had also taken out all these necklaces, rings, these golden ornaments from the bodies, and carefully sort of cataloged them and handed over all these things to the authorities to be distributed to the kings. So all these things, brother, are something called character. Allow me to bring in the concept. It is very easy to be in Brindavan and Prashanti and participate in self-reliance program. As Brother Venkat said, it is very, you must be really of some thick skin to not participate. But after you move out of that system, the consistency in the action is what the character is. So character, according to me, is consistency. Are you displaying the same trait over and over again in as many contexts as possible? And also, character also means utility. This trait, that behavior that we're displaying, I can always go to a bar and just finish off myself, but that is not character. Character also means my action should be of some utility to a larger context. So consistency in action and utility in effort, when I have these two words, consistency and utility, that according to me is character.
Excellent. Sai.
To me, character is like a continuous quest. You're looking for something. You want to. It's very difficult to begin and start by saying that these are the qualities that I will be associated with or which will comprise my character. But when you start out by saying that, yes, I want to improve my character, and you start recognizing the goodness that is all around you, and you keep trying to imbibe at least some bit of it. For example, Swami speaks a lot about selfless love. Okay? But how do we even try to practice it? When you're in Parthi and you're just walking around in the ashram, somebody randomly says Sai Ram and with a smiling face. Now, it brings a joy to you because somebody you do not know, or even you have just a basic familiarity, for no reason decides to light up your face with a smile. Right? Can you do that wherever you are? A continuous quest, maybe through small practices like greeting everybody with a friendly face. Maybe a continuous quest to try to understand the other person's point of view. Maybe a continuous quest to search for a better version of yourself. To me, character is that kind of a continuous journey. And at times, yes, there will be uh, challenges, and that's where I believe what Surya said, that consistency, the ability to stand up for what you really and truly believe in will really matter. Because if it is a continuous quest, it should not stop at the challenge. You overcome the challenge and you move ahead. I remember at a particular point of time during my doctoral days at IIM Ahmedabad, we were organizing a doctoral summer school, and having studied at Perthi, to me it was very difficult to come to terms with the concept that you're going to charge people for such a enormous amount of money for education. Right? And so I wanted to actually run the workshop completely free of cost. because that was what I had learned being at Turkey. I just wanted to charge the participants for their accommodation and food and nothing more. And I was really worried, would the faculty in charge, two of them, would they really appreciate and would they even permit it? Because somebody else has to pick up the tab. So who's going to really do that if the participants are not going to do? So I went with the rest of the program. I went to the PhD program chair, and I explained the rest of the program. And then he asked, "Okay, Sai, so how much do you want to charge the fees?" I was prepared with almost a 1 hour explanation for why it should be free, and I said, "Sir, I want to keep it free of cost." He said, "Fine, go ahead. The institute will take care of the bill." I was feeling inside me that, listen, I prepared a 1 hour explanation, right? Just listen to me. He said, "No, no, it's okay, fine. You want to do it for free of cost. I understand. I appreciate where you're coming from. So we'll do it. Don't worry." So I go to the other faculty in charge, the program chair, for this particular workshop, and I explain everything. At least, and in my head, I actually wanted to explain why I should run it free of cost, right? But then when it comes to the cost, I explained to him that I want to do it for free of cost. He says, "Go ahead. No questions asked." And when the entire work, and then uh, it's typically a challenge to pull doctoral students are busy with their own work, their own thesis work, to come together to do to volunteer for running a lot of these activities. Right? We were just two of us on the team, and everybody else. Whenever we went to any other student saying that, "Can you help us out doing this?" we never faced even a single no. Everybody came together, and the program went on beautifully. And about a day before the program was actually to launch, that particular night I was really panicked, if I could use the word, because I wasn't sure how can things go on so smoothly. This is not Parthi, right? How can things go on so smoothly? I have not faced a single obstacle till this point. So I called my friend Ketan. I say, "Ketan, can you come down? Let's have a chat. I'm really tensed." And he comes down and he asks, what's troubling you?" I say, "I don't know. Something, I'm not sure, something can go wrong, but I'm not sure what can go wrong." And he starts explaining why everything is actually in place, nothing to worry about. And it keeps few words just keep striking in my head. Nimitta matrameva, nimitta matrameva. And I finish the conversation. I go back, I open the Bhagavad Gita, search for the shloka, and then there's this beautiful stanza that Krishna is telling Arjuna. Arjuna, the battle is already fought. Those who have to be killed are already killed. Right? All you have to do is just stand up, be the instrument, and take credit. And at that time, I realized, okay, maybe it saw me, although not being physically there. He's telling me that things are going to be fine. Everything went on beautifully. And in the concluding day, the plenary session, both the workshop chairperson and the program chair, they announced that, "Sai, we have a surprise gift for you. The institute has decided that as long as the doctoral community wants to run it for free, the institute will support it." I never expected this.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And I think that continuous
Beautifully,
quest.
you all have brought in very beautiful facets of well education, if I have to put it in a broader term. And you have shared the life in hostel, the life in college, impact of Mandir. Uh, all of this leads to like Brother Saurabh is asking here, we are discussing value-based education, and everybody, I'm sure they are having this thought in their portion that you are talking from Perthi's perspective. Now, how do you present it here? How do you imbibe those? How can you duplicate your hostel life, your Mandir experiences, and your self-reliant programs effect onto your life in the given environment? And I think this requires a little bit of quick explanation about values, because that's the only thing which you can practice everywhere in the world. And it is not I would say, a territory of Puttaparthi alone that you can do that. But as everybody is now questioning, there are people who are raising these thoughts like, okay, we have heard it, nice. Now what? How do we play it here? So, if you can quickly give us your thoughts about the concept of values, like how all of these activities are based on values, human values, as he talks about, and how do you implement it in your given environment?
Yeah.
I'm just leaving
So
it open. Make a quick inputs for that, please. Yeah.
yes. So first, brother, I think we have to define what a human value is. The very fact we are using two words and not a single word actually, tells a lot about it. Human values. It are values that defines the human being, and especially if I can just extend this, values which differentiates a human being from all other living beings in this planet. But that is why we are humans. We are identified with a very different species. So what is a human value? So and what for, then from a human value is a very I was reading about this a few days back, and I reached with one of the things about in Swami's discourse. And Swami says, my boys, he was giving it to the he said, prema Swarupalara, the one of the biggest thing that you can practice is, and what you alone can have, is unity of thought, word, and deed. And the point is, you also have the will to not get united. A dog wants to bark, the dog will bark, and a dog wants to bite, a dog will bite. But the human being is the only person. If I do not want to bark, yet I'm feeling like barking, I have a choice not to bark or to bark. So, point is, the unity of thought, word, and deed is something that Trikarana Suddhi, what Bhagwan says, is something that the human values, or that what value is, according to me.
Sure. Thanks. Yes. Anybody else? Please. Now I don't want to bind you down.
Yeah,
You all can
yeah. I
jump
think,
in.
this. I agree that it's very easy to follow a certain kind of value system in a place like Puttaparthi. The real challenge is once you step into the outside world. But I think many of the times we tend to overblow the kind of challenges that are there. So if you say, ask me if it is easy, I'll say, of course not. But if you say, is it difficult? Again, my answer is it is not. I don't think it's so difficult. All that you need is, a certain kind of determination, conviction. And in the process, as they say, there's nothing called free lunch. If you want to stick to a value system, then there has to be a certain kind of quid pro quo. What is that quid pro quo? It can be a delayed promotion, it can be a delayed recognition, and it can also be a possibility where there will be no recognition, at least till you are alive.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So therefore, you have, and that is where this whole kind of things like Swami said, appointment petkunte disappointment vastundi. So just because you are doing something, something will come back to you. That kind of a feeling is the one which hurts you the most, more than most of the time.
Yes.
And as I say this, it doesn't mean that people who are sitting here. I don't want to say on the behalf of others, but at least me, I'm yet to embrace that philosophy. But every time I feel desperate about it, I think about those things. That why am I expecting? And so therefore I try to console myself. Is consolation a sense of weakness? If it is, so be it. But then I'm not going, and that's where that consistency thing again comes back. The character comes back. Values is all about consistency. You have to pay a price for it, so be it. I'm not going to buzz. And as
No,
I say, you
you're
have
actually
to have a
telling.
certain kind of obstinacy,
Yeah.
about your values.
Your obstinacy reminds me of a phrase from verse from Gita, which always promotes about nishkam karma.
Right,
The whole
absolutely.
idea is that how do we get passionate about our action and not get carried away or influenced by the output?
Yes.
That is
Yeah,
the beauty. So, Karthik,
yeah.
what is your input?
Right. Yeah, I think the first thing is, if you are trying to implement the values in a system which doesn't put this out upfront. So in Puttaparthi, we are kind of mentored by showing these are the universal values, and there is a sense of purpose, and everyone understands that Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, Himsa are the values that we kind of build this entire edifice on. But in other contexts, I think one way to foster this is to show them in action, is to follow in action as to how do you implement them. So if you're thinking of dharma, for instance, a sense of fairness in how you deal with people, right, and that sense of equality. If you can show in your actions then you can lead from the front. So that's with respect to the second question of how to bring this into your organization, right? And unless that person is actually demonstrating it, there is it is unfair to expect that others will also reciprocate. But what we have seen, at least in my personal capacity, is that once you show that adherence to this particular value, people reciprocate. People are more than happy to reciprocate your belief system, and that's very encouraging. So it's not like inherently people don't follow these values. It's just that you need to provide them that consistency, and again, as brothers have been saying, and you have to have a sense of purpose and commonality of purpose, that people believe that these are the values that our organization is believing in, and that has to be reinforced, that has to be brought in multiple contexts whenever we are having an kind of an organization. We kind of have to have that reminders that this is what we believe in. And one other thing that from Parthi, if I can take a lesson, it is that continuity that goes in the entire system, just neatly built in. So, for instance, if I take my first days in hostel, I don't know how serious these things are. Like everyone says, the places are disciplined; they follow it to the T. But for me to realize that they really mean what they're saying. If you have to wake up at 5 a.m., you have to wake up at 5 a.m. Right? So how do we mean? How do we know that? Not everything can be kind of conveyed by the professor. Of course, they're also imposing all the discipline. But you also have the team or the room leaders who are seniors, who have been in the system for a couple of years already. So they know that this is what it means. You really have to follow this. So that sense of purpose is being conveyed from the senior batch to the junior batch in very minute way, in for a very minute thing, and that continuity has to be maintained if these values have to be kind of fostered and put in.
Consistency and continuity is very, very critical.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Sai,
I think so. Let me start with the human values as we are introduced to them, right? So, if we really want to stick by any particular human values or have a base as human values, we need to know what is the adharam, the base which is really going to hold it up. This has to be the truth. Satya is the adhara, dharma is the achara, shanti is the swabhava, and prema is the swarupa. Right? But which means that you have to at first accept something and start working around that, right? You believe in something, uh, and when you trust that God has told you this, then your belief is based on a knowledge, at least about His Godhood, and then you hold on to this particular truth, and then you start to reflect that in your actions. You start to reflect that in your demeanor. You start to reflect that in the way you make people around you feel, in the way you feel about people. But this, apart from consistency, is again I come back to this, that it's an ongoing, continuous quest, and the quest even is about what you're accepting as the base itself. Because at no point of time can I, at least I can speak definitely for myself, can I confidently say that I know what the real truth is. I need to question what I'm believing in. I need to understand what I'm believing in, and I should not stop at the first answer. It may not be the right answer. I need to ask. I need to ask. And this is a continuous journey that keeps going on and on and on. And while interacting with others, of course, we need to be able to listen to what the other person is saying, empathize with them. And then I think once these we take as kind of a guiding principles for our actions, I think we will be able to, irrespective of the place, whether it is in Parthi or outside Parthi, there is always an element of environment that you carry along with you. There's an environment that you go to. There's an environment that you create once you go to a particular place. There's an environment that you carry along with you wherever you go. And I think these are something that we should try to carry with us wherever we go.
you know, it's a very beautiful thoughts when you look at Swami, how he has trained everybody to think about it, because everybody believes in values. The challenge is in practicing it. And in practicing, you get influenced by your own interpretation of values, and that is influenced by the environment. So you go into a vicious circle of trying to figure out, and you cannot decipher unless you get out of that environment and create your own system, then to evaluate back on the environment and then put into practice. So, what Bhagwan has done practically by putting himself in place and by putting a Prashanti kind of an environment is to give us a referral point. from where you can look at the world, look at our own self, and then know, okay, what is happening actually. Otherwise, being in that environment, we can never think about the values or walking on it, because we are so sucked into this turmoil, so to say. So his appearance and his environmental structures which he has stood up, like universities, colleges, hostels, and he himself, I find them as a referral point, a point of where I can extract my energy, that okay, I know where I know what can be achieved, I know what is possible. Without that referral point, somehow we are lost. We don't know what is happening. I know the time is running, but I wanted to close this with a nostalgic mood for all of you, because since you are in that era who has seen Bhagwan, like Sai has seen him through Venkat, you have come and seen at that phase, and now the avatar is not available to us. May I conclude this, whole exercise? This is all nice to talk, nice to live. We have to live, but the memories which Avatar can imprint, that is amazing. So may I ask you all in quick few moments if you can share your last interaction, last impression, or mood with Bhagwan.
Yeah. So in 2010 December, actually our batch, we had this golden opportunity to have a get together. Swami gave an interview to our batch, 92-95 batch. Just as we were about to complete our graduation, he gave an interview to a whole batch. And then after 15 years, 2010, when many of us had our families, we had kids, along with our parents, we all actually got a chance to have a kind of an one-on-one interaction with Swami in the bhajan hall. He gave a lot of time. So I don't remember, during my 3 years of student life, Swami having spoken to me after seeing me so clearly. So he told me, "Yala unna baunava. How are you? How are you? Are you good?" So that was enough for me. And and then the same day from that batch, three students, got the opportunity to, one got the opportunity to give the flower after the bhajans were over. One got the opportunity to take, cast off the evil eye, the coconut, ritual, and one got the
Coconut.
chance to give aarti to Swami after the 6:30 bhajans. So I was one of those blessed, people who got that opportunity to give aarti to Swami. Swami is sitting in front of me after the bhajans are over, and in the main mandir after the bhajans, I got this chance. So those are fabulous memories and enough to actually inspire in my journey ahead. And
Beautiful.
not to forget what he has given me.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
For me, it was alumni meet, January 1st, 2011. Swami called all the alumni inside the Punachandra auditorium, and he was sitting there. I got the first line, so I don't know when was the last time I sat in the first line. Before that, so it was wonderful. In fact, I'll tell you a small thing that happened. So we were sitting there, and it was probably 45 minutes into our waiting. Someone comes in and says, "We need some help. We need to bring some chairs." And then I'm like, well, if I go, I might lose this first line. And if I don't go, that's not correct. So I just, okay, it's okay. Swami will be happy if I go and help. So I just rush in, we do this, transfer and then come back. Luckily, Swami is not there, so I can still go back and sit in my first line place. And then Swami comes in and he sits almost for a couple of hours, if I remember, maybe at least an hour or so. And then he goes around everywhere giving Pada Namaskar. Right? That was, I think, I'm really grateful for that experience. Swami. That's unforgettable.
That was an amazing session with Bhagwan.
Amazing session, yeah, right. I think you were also there. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, so in 2008, I think, or 2009, I may be wrong with the dates. Basically, with Swami's blessings, I won an award in IMB in IM Bangalore. So this they have a research paper competition for doctoral students, doctoral consortium, and I ended up getting a second prize. I think I got a 10,000 rupees check and one citation. But we are Swami's children, literally, and everything we get. That was my first income, you can say, as an award. I really want to really offer it to Bhagwan. When I say offer, it is no mental with me. I really want Bhagwan to take it. And so after the award ceremony, I booked a cab from Bangalore and I rushed to Prashanti. So Bhagwan, that time used to come a little late in darshan. So I was there, there at 4:35, and then Swami came. And as Swami approached the old boys block, I got up. I said, Swami, this is an award I won, in IMB. I really want to offer it to you. I'll be very happy if you can just take this. Swami smiled, patted my hand, took the check, and went to the interview room. And I was, yeah, he did that. I was
That's
very
beautiful.
touched. I was in tears, literally offering my mother something, a part of my earning. So it was very nice. So yeah, so that was my experience for that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So my a couple of last interactions with Swami. A lot of the students write the net and the gate exam, and those who do well, sometimes Swami has the name announced and even rewards them. So this is March, and I'm in the hospital on some other work, and I get the message that they're announcing the names of all the students who have cleared. Now I had written it in June, and this was all the December set, and I was the only person from the June set still in the hospital doing my MT. And I get the message. I quickly get ready to start running to the Mandir. By the time I reach Mandir, most of the students are done. They've gone, taken Swami's partners class. Swami's given them a pen. And as I'm reaching there, I noticed that there are actually two brothers who are making the announcement. The total three of them making the announcement. Two of them are looking this side to see if I'm going to reach or not. And the moment they see me entering, it's fine because there were just two students left. So if I would have come even a minute or two late, possibly I could have missed it. But thankfully, I was on time, and I was the last person that Swami gave the pen to, took the Padma Namaskar, and just a couple of days later was the last darshan. This was the last distribution program also that Swami had, the pens for all the students who had cleared the gate exam and the net exam. And a couple of days later was the last darshan where Swami raised his hands. And we never imagined on that particular day the import of that particular darshan. But thinking back, uh, I think it was just a blessing to be there on that particular day and see him in physical form. And the darshans haven't stopped. Definitely, the darshans haven't stopped, at least for me. Like Swami always used to say, if you're getting a dream of me, it is purely by my will, and not by your imagination. Whenever I've had tough decisions to make or just wanted to see him, he's been gracious enough to keep granting his darshan. So, to me, the darshans are still continuing.
You're lucky, man. I have not seen him in dreams ever. I'm still waiting. Uh, Thank you so much, all of you. Really, I can't express my gratitude enough. It is beautiful. Uh, the time is also up, and I wanted to just say thank you for your time, for giving us a beautiful journey of yours, sharing with us beautiful memories. You really brought in so much nostalgia, I can't even tell you. And thank you, participants, for watching this and joining us again this evening. Thank you very much. Any final words before we close?
Oh, thank you so much, Brother Avi, for this golden opportunity, to ruminate, reflect. It is such a nice feeling. And many of the things, as we say, this reflection also gives us an inspiration to, make ourselves better in the journey ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the
Sai.
opportunity. Just spending this time, reminiscing these things makes you, makes you lively and brings energy. So thank you for this opportunity. Sai.
Sairam.
Thank you so much,
Sai.
brother.
Hmm.
Thank you so much. Just talking about Swami, listening to stories about Swami, listening to his bhajans. I think these are the kind of reconnections that we have to come back to our Adharam and touch base
Certainly.
with always realizing that it is Swami who's always driving us. Thank you so much for.
Certainly. Yeah. Brother Surya's, I think the electricity went off there and he has dropped out.
Yeah.
So I apologize on his behalf, but thank you very much. Sairam and
Thank you.
Sairam,
Sai Ram.
everybody.
Sai.
Sai Ram.
Sai.
Yeah. Sai
Good
Ram.
night.